to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
It was October 2nd, 2019, that pro wrestling returned to the Turner Networks with AEW Dynamite. And since then, we have gotten amazing moments, amazing memories, chaos, all the 9 yards. And 200 weeks later, AEW Dynamite is still growing strong. What is up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review AEW Dynamite 200 from August 2nd, 2023. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the AEW Dynamite 200 review. Overall thoughts on this show. This show was fucking awesome. You know, from a presentation standpoint and from just a creative standpoint, I enjoyed what I watched on this show. It was absolutely phenomenal. 10 times better than the shit we got last week. Now, if you think about it, on paper, the card for this week's Dynamite was not really the best. Not really the best card. But usually when AEW tends to give out dull cards, you would say, for Dynamite before the show even happens, 9 times out of 10, when the show actually happens, the show ends up being really good. And from what it looks like right now, man, I'm excited for the next couple of weeks. Of course, we are on the road to All In at Wembley Stadium in London. And we got our first match announced, and it is official. It will be Adam Cole versus MJF for the AEW World Championship. A lot of developments, man. That babyface MJF promo, holy fucking shit. MJF proves time and time again that he not only can be a good heel, but he can also be a very, very, very good babyface that the audience can just gravitate to. Because at the end of the day, this man is a fucking scumbag. But we had that. We had Mr. Monday Night, or I should say Mr. Wednesday Night. RVD 420 says, I just smoked your ass the whole fucking show. Rob Van Dam show up on this show. It was actually in the rumor mill, and I believe Fightful reported it earlier in the day that RVD was actually planned for All In, and we're actually going to be getting RVD versus Jack Perry next week for the FTW Championship. It's not going to be at All In. It's actually going to be on Dynamite, and honestly, I am totally fine with that. I feel like there's a longer-term plan for Jack Perry and the FTW title at All In, but nonetheless, RVD showing up on Dynamite, I loved it. This man came out to his original ECW theme, Walk by Pantera. Holy shit, absolutely awesome moment. We had Chris Jericho and Konosuke Takeshita taking on Sammy, Guevara, and Daniel Garcia. The Jericho and Don Callis family story is continuing. We had a triple threat, anything goes match with John Moxley, Trent, and Penta El Cerro, which was a phenomenal match. Very random match if you really think about it, but this match was pure chaos on all levels. And surprisingly, John Moxley did not even bleed in this match. Of course, we had the amazing MJF segment that I'll be talking about. We had the Elite taking on Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh. Of all people, you had the Elite wrestle. You had them fucking wrestle Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh. I will say, though, the match was pretty entertaining. And really, of course, the promo after with Kenny Omega saying whether it's on Dynamite, Ring of Honor, Rampage, or heck, maybe even Collision. My eyes are thinking, my head is thinking a lot about what could happen leading towards All Out now that Kenny Omega mentioned Collision. Think about this. The Elite has never promoted at all AEW Collision whatsoever. This was the first time Kenny Omega said Collision on television and in any other capacity, to say the least. And I know for a fact that that was not an accident. I pray to God right now that by some chance we get a feud with CM Punk. I pray right now. Now that the Elite are locked in, who fucking knows? But we're going to have to wait and see. I'll talk about that later on. But, of course, the Elite are staying with AEW as announced earlier in the day, which I talked about on episode 23 or 24. I completely forgot, of the WrestleHavoc Podcast, on the recent episode of the WrestleHavoc Podcast. So much fucking shit is going on. We had Aussie Open and El Hijo del Vikingo, or Aussie Open taking on El Hijo del Vikingo and Commander for the ROH Tag Team titles. And, of course, we had the main event with Hikaru Shida wrestling Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship, in which we have a new women's champion in Hikaru Shida, and Hikaru Shida is now a two-time AEW Women's World Champion. Overall thoughts on this episode of Dynamite. Dynamite was fucking awesome. I enjoyed Dynamite for what it was. It was a phenomenal show. Everything about it from top to bottom, 10 times better than last week. Not only that, the presentation of the show, we had the old graphics. As you see in this fucking layout over here, I got the old Dynamite graphics on here. They brought back the old set with the two tunnels. I don't know why, man. You know, they did the new set in the first Dynamite of 2023, and it's only been like, 7 months since they had that set, and honestly, it feels like a long time that we haven't seen those tunnels, right? I don't know why. It feels like a long fucking time. And with those old graphics, I feel so fucking old, and I'm only 21. Jesus Christ. Because I've been watching Dynamite since the premiere. I've been following AEW since the formation of the company, since January 1st, 2019, man. 2019. It's now 2023. It's been that fucking long. It's insane. But nonetheless, this was an awesome episode of Dynamite. I very much enjoyed this episode, and I'm very excited to see what's going to be happening this Saturday on Collision, as well as, of course, in the other Dynamites and Collisions leading up to AEW All In at Wembley Stadium. But before I get on with all this craziness regarding AEW Dynamite, of course, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and, as the Virgin Referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Of course, if you guys had missed it, the recent episode of the WrestleHavoc Podcast, episode 21, wow, I actually got that right, episode 24 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast is up on the channel. I talk about the heart and soul of AEW signing new deals with the company, and they will be staying with AEW for the foreseeable future, which is a positive move on AEW's end, because they lost Cody Rhodes last year. Imagine losing the entirety of the Elite to the WWE. That would have been a major blow to the company, and probably something that they could have not even recovered from. And I've always stated throughout the entirety of this year, when we all knew about their contract status, you know, Tony Khan's number one priority should not be CM Punk and everything else going on. It should be re-signing the Elite. And now that is all said and done, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. The Elite will be staying in AEW. I talk about Vince McMahon and the subpoena that was sent to him briefly. I also talk about the Cody Rhodes documentary. Yes, I cover the Cody Rhodes documentary. I thought it was a phenomenal documentary, and I talk about why fans are absolutely stupid with their instigating on the internet as to the comments that Triple H said in that documentary. So I talk about all that and much more right here on episode 24 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast. The link will be in the description below if you guys had missed it. Also, the Raw review is up on the channel. I talk about Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes going face-to-face. Of course, it is the SummerSlam go-home show. SummerSlam is going to be taking place this Saturday in Ford Field in Detroit, and I'm absolutely excited to see what's going to be going down. Overall, I thought this was actually surprisingly a pretty good episode of Raw. I actually enjoyed this show for what it was, and I talk about a lot going on this show, as well as, of course, SummerSlam. Actually, in episode 24 of the podcast, I even give my preview and predictions for SummerSlam, so also check out episode 24. But also, if you guys missed it, checked out the Raw review. The link will be in the description below. All right. Let's move on to AEW Dynamite 200. The show kicks off with Chris Jericho teaming up with Konosuke Takeshita, taking on Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia. Pretty good tag team pairing with Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia. They've been doing a lot of good things throughout these past couple of weeks on Dynamite. Chris Jericho and Konosuke Takeshita, great pairing as well. Of course, Chris Jericho, when Don Callis announced this match that was going to be taking place, Chris Jericho was a little bit shocked that he was going to be wrestling Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia, but Don Callis was like, hey, man, you wanted to spread their wings. Now is your chance. Now it's their chance. Overall, this was a great match. Really, the main story of this match was basically Jericho and the Don Callis family, whether or not he will be joining the Don Callis family, and it's a pretty intriguing story that I'm definitely interested in. I've always stated, ever since they started teasing stuff with Don Callis and Chris Jericho, I think the Jericho Appreciation Society has ran its course. I am done with the Jericho Appreciation Society. It was great when they first started, but after they dragged out that whole Blackpool Combat Club feud, I was like, fuck that shit. absolutely fuck that shit, because honestly, they dragged that feud so long. They should have ended that with the Eddie Kingston and Jericho match in that barbed wire match, if you guys do not remember. And that itself was a pretty embarrassing match, to say the least. But nonetheless, the Jericho Appreciation Society has run its course, and I'm just through with that group. So honestly, this whole thing gives something new for Chris Jericho to do. Honestly, I would even be advocating for a singles babyface Chris Jericho run. I just go with that, but it is what it is. Let's go through the match a little bit. Jericho and Sammy start. We get a shoulder tackle by Jericho. Sammy gets up, but then both men exchange shots. We then get a drop kick by Sammy, and then we get repeated chops by Sammy, followed by repeated chops by Jericho. There was a lot of fucking chops in this match. We then get a jumping knee by Sammy, taking down Jericho, but then Garcia makes the tag. We then get the double team by Garcia and Sammy, but then both men do their pose. After that, Jericho and Garcia goes for a series of exchanges. After that, Garcia does his dance. The crowd goes crazy. One thing I will say, man, every time when Garcia does the dance, the crowd just gets up on their feet and they go crazy. So Takeshita makes the tag. Takeshita runs the ropes so fucking fast and flies and takes down Daniel Garcia. He hits a right hand. We get a cover and a near fall. And Takeshita actually tries to mock Daniel Garcia by doing the dance. And the crowd goes with "You Can't Dance" chants. After that, Jericho makes the tag. We get a side slam on Jericho. We get a cover and a 1 count. Jericho goes for a delayed vertical suplex, but then Jericho slaps Garcia. Garcia then fights back with a series of right hands, but then he runs the ropes. But then Don Callis grabs the leg of Daniel Garcia. After that, Jericho goes for a boot. We go to commercial break, and once we're back, Jericho's still in control. He hits a chop on Garcia, but then Garcia fights back with a couple of chops of his own. Jericho tries to go for the line salt, but Garcia counters when he gets the knees up. Sammy and Takeshita make the tag, but then we get a crossbody by Sammy. Jericho then gets taken to the outside, but then we get a clothesline by Sammy, taking Takeshita to the outside. Sammy goes for a tope or an elbow suicida, as Excalibur stated on commentary. After that, he basically takes Takeshita and he hits a tope on the other side. Once we're back into the ring, Sammy goes to the top. He hits a frog splash, and we get a cover into near fall when Jericho breaks the pin. After that, Sammy and Jericho push one another. After that, Takeshita immediately goes for the Blue Thunder Bomb on Sammy Guevara. And then Takeshita applies the walls. Yes, they called it directly this. They called it the walls of Takeshita, and it's basically Takeshita applying a lion tamer. So he applies a lion tamer, but it's called the walls of Takeshita. And Jericho makes the tag. We get a standing Spanish fly by Sammy. Jericho then tries to apply the walls, but then Sammy goes for the inside cradle, and we get a near fall. After that, both men clothesline one another. Garcia makes the tag, and then he lands into a code breaker by Jericho. After that, we get a cover by Jericho and a near fall. Garcia then gets sent into the corner, but then he comes back with a flying kick. We then get a cover by Garcia, and then Takeshita interferes. Then we get a thrust kick by Sammy, but then Sammy is on the top. He ends up hitting a shooting star press on Takeshita on the outside. Jericho hits a boot, but then later Garcia blocks him, but then we get a cover and another near fall. Garcia then applies the Dragon Slayer. After that, Don Callis grabs the bat. Yes, he grabs the bat. The bat's name is called Floyd. Yeah, he grabs Floyd. And he hits Garcia without the referee looking. And Jericho looks at Callis and he's fucking shocked. He did not want this to happen, as we may seem, or as the look of his face showed. He did not know that all this shit was going to go down. So Jericho hits him with the bat, or I should say Callis hits him with the bat. Jericho looks at Callis, and Jericho, being the guy that he is, immediately goes for the cover. 1, 2, 3. Jericho wins the match, and after the match, Chris Jericho is shocked. Overall thoughts on this match. I thought this match was great. Very good opener to Dynamite. I know a lot of people are not really big fans of Chris Jericho nowadays. I mean, I remember last year, man, Jericho had a fucking career year. If you think about Chris Jericho's career in ring last year, one of the best. Even at his age last year, man, Jericho was on another fucking level last year. He was putting out banger matches with guys like Bandito, John Moxley, Eddie Kingston. Granted, the best match that they've had with Chris Jericho and Eddie Kingston, the best match that they have ever had, was the opening match of Revolution last year. But I digress. But this whole feud, I don't want to say feud, but story with Jericho and the Don Callis family, I'm definitely intrigued to see what's going to be happening in the future. Again, the Jericho Appreciation Society has run its course, and it's not really that important, and nobody gives a single shit about the JAS. Meanwhile, we go back to commercial break, and Jericho tries to, Renee Paquette tries to backstage interview Jericho, or she tries to interview Jericho, I should say. Matt Menard comes in, and he says, next week, JAS mandatory meeting. So he's taking a page out of Chris Jericho's book. Remember when the Inner Circle was on the verge of breaking up and Jericho was like, the Inner Circle will have a mandatory meeting. Yep, Matt Menard said the same thing. Apparently his nipples are not that hard. After that, we got Tony Khan backstage, and he thanks everybody for the success of AEW as we're headed towards the biggest show in wrestling history. Now, the original title for All In, the original All In back in 2018, was the biggest independent wrestling show in the world, or ever, I should say. This time, it's going to be the biggest wrestling show in history. Basically, they took a page out of the original All In, but since they're going to Wembley Stadium, they were like, nah, man, this is going to be the biggest shit ever. And we get a very good video package of the history of AEW Dynamite, dating back to the very first Dynamite, of course, the very first match with Sammy Guevara and Cody Rhodes. Great moments throughout the Jacksonville era. I know a lot of people started watching Dynamite during the Jacksonville era. I started watching Dynamite since the premiere. I can remember back in 2019 when AEW first started. I remember when the rumors of AEW were starting, man. You know, I wasn't really diving deep that much in the independents. I still am not really diving deep in the independents, but I would see a lot of the stuff that Cody and the Bucks were doing. I would watch a little bit of BTE. They were so fucking cool. Man, the Bullet Club shirts were fucking selling out everywhere on those Hot Topics. And when the company was first announced, there was a lot of fucking doubters, but I was one of those people. I was like, bro, this company is going to be a fucking success. And look where we are now, man. 200 episodes later, and AEW is still growing strong on the verge of selling out Wembley Stadium. You love to see it. But it was a phenomenal video package showcasing the history of AEW Dynamite from 2019 all the way up to now. After that, we got a Jack Perry interview with Tony Schiavone. Of course, the current FTW champion, Jack Perry. I thought last week's segment was pretty dull. I didn't really enjoy last week's segment. Nobody expected Jerry Lynn to come in and fucking go out of retirement and wrestle Jack Perry. Let's be real here. You know, how old is Jerry Lynn? Jerry Lynn retired like over 10 years ago. I believe his last match was with RVD, and I believe it was in a TNA ring. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he did retire. I believe it was like 2011 or 2012. But still, there's no way Jerry Lynn was going to go out of retirement. But we had a great surprise. So Jack Perry has an interview. He snatches the mic away from Tony Schiavone. And damn, Tony Schiavone, man, I feel bad for the guy. Jerry tells him, Jerry, I gave you a week to get ready. Come out here and take your ass kicking like a man. It's so weird for a guy like Jungle Boy to say shit like that. Jerry Lynn then comes out and he says, first of all, Jungle Boy, you do not run the show around here. As much as I want to go down there in the ring and teach you a lesson, of course, that would just be child abuse. That was hilarious. He talks about how he doesn't run the show. And, of course, all the plates and screws in his neck, no doctor would clear him. And he talks about how he called a good friend of his who just happened to wrestle in ECW, and just so happens that he still wrestles today. And, of course, who is it? It is none other than RVD, Rob Van Dam. RVD 420 says, I just smoked your ass. Sadly, there was no Bill Alfonso, man. Imagine if there was Bill Alfonso coming in and out with the fucking whistle, just like whistling all the constant bass. We all know how Tony Khan loves ECW so much. Of course, if you guys watch the original ECW, RVD would come out to Bill Alfonso. But he came out to Walk by Pantera, man. That was his original ECW theme. Tony Khan, you could tell he's an ECW mark. You can just tell by the music that he paid. How much money did he pay for Walk by Pantera? I have no idea, but there's one thing that you could say positively about Tony Khan. It's that this man does not give a shit how much money he pays. He wants the right music for his wrestlers, and he did that with RVD, with his old ECW theme. Phenomenal stuff. The Second Gear crew is a little bit pissed off. You guys do not know who the Second Gear crew is. They use the same music. But he comes in the ring. RVD comes in the ring, and Jack Perry retreats. And what happens is he goes in the ring, he does his little pose, but then Jack Perry comes back, but then Jack Perry retreats again, and it looks like it's official. We're going to be getting RVD versus Jack Perry next week on Dynamite. Now, a lot of people suspected, and the rumors were speculating, and Fightful even reported this, that the rumored match for All In was going to be RVD versus Jack Perry for the FTW title. Now that's not going to be the case. So clearly they have a longer term plan when it comes to Jack Perry, and when it comes to who will be wrestling, him for the FTW title. Now, if you guys haven't seen footage of RVD now, he's like, 52 years old? RVD, he doesn't wrestle a lot, but, he would wrestle a couple of independent dates. And from the footage that I've seen, RVD he can still fucking go in the ring. He is really good. I mean, his last major run was in Impact Wrestling a couple of years ago, and he was still very good. Of course, he was doing the stuff with Katie Forbes, which is his real-life wife. Bro, I'm going to tell you right now, man, in 2023, RVD is living the life. Any guy would want that. RVD is definitely living the life, but it's great to see RVD I was about to say an ECW ring. Man, I was about to go on an ECW tirade over here. It's great to see him in an AEW ring. Of course, you can tell Tony Khan loves his ECW, and he brought in RVD, paid for the music. We're set. Next week, we're going to be getting RVD versus Jack Perry. The whole fucking show will be competing on the Superstation next week, so I'm excited. After that, we got a video package of Tony Storm versus Hikaru Shida, and that was actually going to be the main event of this week's show. After that, we got our next match. We had Jon Moxley taking on Trent, taking on Penta in a three-way match, and this match is dubbed an Anything Goes match. Now, if you think about it, this match is pretty fucking random. And the fact that Trent is involved in an Anything Goes match is very weird. Because like guys like Jon Moxley and Penta El Cerro, they it makes total sense for those guys to be involved in an Anything Goes match. But Trent? I don't know about that. Very random. And it's a very random three-way match. But I will say, this match was awesome. I mean, it was absolute chaos. That's what this match was. Surprisingly, Jon Moxley didn't even bleed in this match. Usually, when it comes to these types of matches, you would think Jon Moxley would bleed. I mean, this guy, like, for fuck's sakes, this guy would bleed almost every week. And to me, it starts to get a little bit concerning. But someone did bleed in this match, but it wasn't Jon Moxley. It ended up being Trent Beretta. All right, we get a tope by Trent immediately when Mox was doing his entrance. Penta goes for a somersault on Trent. We get a sling blade on Mox on the outside, followed by a spear by Trent on Penta. So we got spot after spot after spot. Immediately after the spear, we get a lariat. Lariat, Kojima, says CM Punk. No, I'm just kidding. We get a lariat by Mox on Trent. Mox works on Trent, but then he bites the face of Trent. Then Penta uses a trash can. He hits Moxley with the trash can, and then Trent comes in. He gets hit with the trash can lid, but then Penta runs into a cutter by Mox. Mox then takes out a barbed wire 2x4. Yeah, a barbed wire 2x4. After that, Penta goes for a thrust kick. Penta then grabs the 2x4, and then we get a chop by Moxley. Penta immediately goes for a backstabber, and then he takes Moxley to the corner. And what it looks like is Trent comes in, and he basically hits a knee using the lid. Mox then hits Trent with the barbed wire 2x4, and he just wrenches the face of Trent Beretta with the barbed wire 2x4. And we get a bunch of "you sick fuck" chants by the crowd. After that, he hits a gotch-style pile driver on Trent on the barbed wire. And then Moxley runs into a slam on the 2x4. Penta then goes for an overhand chop. Penta then takes out two tables on the outside of the ring. Trent gets driven to the steel steps. Penta's on the middle rope, but then Moxley comes in. He grabs the 2x4, and then he wrenches the face of Penta with the 2x4. Penta then falls down, right? Moxley goes to the top, but then Trent also goes to the top. Trent fights off Moxley, and what happens is Trent ends up hitting a superplex on Mox through both tables. Once we're back from commercial break, everybody is in the ring. Two tables are placed in the ring, but then one is in the corner, and one is on the mat. And then we get a double thrust kick by Trent and Penta on Moxley. And then we get a double thrust kick by Penta and Trent on Mox. Then we get a thrust kick on Trent by Penta. After that, Trent is placed on the table, but then Penta goes to the top. Penta then ends up hitting an Avalanche Canadian Destroyer through the table. An Avalanche Canadian Destroyer. Jesus Christ. Moxley then shoulder blocks Penta through the table into the corner. Moxley has a bag. It's fucking thumbtacks. Remember in Blood and Guts where he had a bag and we all thought it was thumbtacks, but it was at the end of the day it was glass? Yeah. So he takes out the thumbtacks. He rips the shirt of Penta. We get a kick by Penta. He tries to go for the Fear Factor, but then Mox hits the Gotch-style pile driver on the tacks. We get a cover engineer fall, but then he throws Penta on his back on the tacks. Trent comes in. Moxley then hits a cutter on the tacks on Trent, but then later Trent hits the, I believe it was the Strong Zero. I believe that's what the finishing move is. I completely forgot. On the tacks on Mox. We get a cover engineer fall when Penta hits Trent with the trash can lid, but then all three men get up. All three men exchange strikes. We get a thrust kick by Penta on Trent. Then after that, Moxley immediately goes for the King Kong Lariat. Mox and Penta exchange shots. Then we get a springboard caught by Moxley, and then Mox ends up hitting the Paradigm Shift. Trent goes for a kick. We get a cover on Penta. Trent wins the match. After the match, Moxley applies the choke on Trent. Claudio and Wheeler Yuta from the Blackpool Combat Club come out. but Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy immediately attack them on the crowd. Mox fights off Chuck Taylor. Cassidy gets taken to the ringside area, but then Trent takes everybody out with a off the top rope, I should say. I was about to say a tope, but my notes are fucked up. Once we're in the ring, Chuck Taylor throws a chair on Claudio. Claudio retreats. Moxley's behind them, but then Orange comes in and immediately hits the Orange Punch. Then Best Friends challenge them to a parking lot match at Daly's place in the parking lot this Friday on Rampage. Of course, if you guys do not remember, a couple years ago, during the pandemic, Best Friends, that being Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta, wrestled Santana and Ortiz in a great parking lot match on Dynamite. It was a phenomenal match. And they're going to be returning to Daly's place for this parking lot match. I assume they're going to pre-tape that because Rampage is taped after, but they're definitely going to be pre-taping that whole thing. But overall, this Anything Goes match was great. I enjoyed it. Chaos at its finest. Surprisingly, Mox didn't win, but Moxley, I believe, did not get the pin in this match. Penta got the pin, but Trent got the win. But it's very interesting how they're feuding with Best Friends right now, and I assume we're going to be getting a one-on-one match between Jon Moxley and Orange Cassidy for the international title. We get a backstage interview with Mr. Pay-Per-View, RVD, Rob Van Dam. Talks about how he heard Jack Perry running his mouth. And, of course, he says, he knows all these people are listening, and last week he wants to challenge him, or I should say next week. I swear to God, these notes are atrocious. Next week he wants to challenge him for the FTW Championship, and after he beats him, he's done what he's done with so many championships. One-on-one, he will retire that championship, and next week it's going to be you versus me. So it's official. We're going to be getting RVD versus Jack Perry on Dynamite. Next up, we got one of the best segments of the entire night, if not the best thing that happened on this show. The MJF segment. Now, we do know what happened this past Saturday on Collision with Adam Cole and MJF losing to FTR and FTR retaining the AEW World Tag Team titles. But after the match, we had an amazing moment. MJF was blaming himself. Then Adam Cole turned his back, and then the camera panned to MJF, and he had the AEW World Championship, and it looked like he was going to hit Adam Cole, but MJF was like, no, damn it, I can't do it because Adam Cole is such a nice guy. And then they ended up hugging it out, and that was that. MJF and Adam Cole are still best friends. You know the turn is happening. You do know the turn is happening. But we're going to have to wait a little bit. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer. Babyface MJF, man. Everybody talks about how MJF is such an amazing heel, but MJF is such a good babyface. He really, really, really is. Do I see MJF turning babyface with this angle? No. I actually believe MJF is going to be the guy to turn. Now, a lot of people are speculating that Adam Cole could be the guy, especially immediately after this segment, and I'll tell you why. But what's very interesting is that MJF can literally control the crowd, and he has the crowd by the palm of his hands. I talked about this all the way early last year when he did that promo, about CM Punk. Of course, if you guys do not remember, when CM Punk challenged him to the dog collar match, CM Punk showed a photo of him and Max, early on when Max was just a little kid. And CM Punk was like, to me, it was just a Friday, and that really affected MJF. And in that promo, MJF talked about the history that he had and why he is who he is. We really got a sense of why MJF is the asshole that he is. And, of course, it made CM Punk feel a little bit guilty about all the stuff that he said. And then the next week, CM Punk tried to explain himself to MJF and talks about all the stuff he did as a person back in his career. And what happened is they both hugged it out, and MJF ended up low-blowing CM Punk, and he basically quoted CM Punk with the greatest thing the devil ever did was convincing the world that he didn't exist, and I'm the devil himself, and we got the devil, MJF. This was very similar to that, but at the same time, it was more of a spin. MJF kind of stated the stories that he said last year in that promo, explaining, his past and all that stuff, but in this case, it was a little different, in which MJF was just full-blown babyface. He was a full-blown babyface in this whole segment, and the crowd ate that shit up because they knew the Adam Cole and MJF story is so over right now with the audience. I know a lot of people are calling this AEW's version of the Bloodline storyline. To an extent, I would understand that, because if you think about it, the Sami Zayn Bloodline stuff and the Adam Cole and MJF stuff are kind of very similar in the sense of it's a stupid idea, but it just works. That's how it is. But I don't think this is AEW's version of the Bloodline storyline. I mean, you can't duplicate the Bloodline. You know, the Bloodline is good in and of itself, and you just can't you can't redo that. But what you can do is make something completely different and just make something work. And that is exactly what they did with Adam Cole and MJF. But I'll talk more about my thoughts on this whole promo segment later on after I go through this entire segment, because this entire segment was just absolutely phenomenal. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, of course, is smiling, as you see in this photo over here. It's babyface MJF, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, MJF is like, sounds like we got a couple of devil worshippers in the house tonight. But he is a little emotional. He talks about how he has something called attention deficit disorder. Of course, ADD. We get a bunch of ADD chants by the crowd. MJF then replies he wishes his teacher felt that way. And he talks about how there are many other disorders that were linked to that particular disorder. One disorder that he struggled with the most was called rejection sensitive disorder, RSD. Essentially, his brain is structured differently, and he can't regulate rejection based on emotions or behaviors, making life very, very, very hard and difficult for him. And to be honest, life would be pretty hard without RSD, because there's a lot about his past that we do not know. He's been bullied, he's been abused, he's been cheated on, he's been lied to, he's been battered and beaten, and frankly, a lot of it he basically blacked out. He remembers the day when those kids walked up to him with a handful of quarters and threw it at him, and they told him, "Pick it up, Jew boy, pick it up." To this day, he still wakes up in a cold sweat, and he feels the sensation of the quarters hitting his skin. He remembers saying to himself that day that everyone on this planet was an evil scumbag, and if he wanted to survive this lifetime to protect himself, he needed to stab everyone in the back before they stabbed him in the back first. But he is beginning to realize that that is not the way to live, because when he was protecting himself, he ended up becoming one of them. He ended up becoming a scumbag himself. And it's true. And to be honest, guys, being a scumbag is easy. And, of course, making you people hate me is easy. To try, to make you guys boo me, it's very easy. But what is hard is that being vulnerable is the most difficult part. Being open is very hard. And he knew that with this disorder, if he opened himself up and he was just Max and you people booed him, he knew that it would bring him back to being that 5'0" ADD-riddled Jew boy that had quarters thrown at him. But you know what? He is not scared anymore. He is not scared anymore, and that is because of everyone. Of course, he's talking about the fans. And everybody taught me that you do care about Max. And we get a bunch of Max chants by the audience. He talks about how they taught him that, by God, you got sympathy for the devil. And you know what? He ain't going to change overnight. I mean, for God's sakes, I'm still a scumbag, says MJF. But don't get me wrong. God damn it, I'm ready to be your scumbag. Right then and there, when he says that he's ready to be your scumbag, that is #1 bestseller right now on AEWshop.com, just saying. The crowd is cheering Mox. The crowd is cheering Max at this point. And we get a bunch of "he's a scumbag" chants. You already know that shit. It's already over. But there is one person who taught him to think like this. And a person who taught him that living with hate ain't the way to live at all. A person that taught him that he can trust and be vulnerable at the same time. And a person who taught him that even Max Friedman, the devil, deserves a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, he would like to give a round of applause to somebody who feels is the best professional wrestler in the world and one of the best human beings in the world, his best friend, Adam Cole, baby. And Adam Cole walks out, no music whatsoever. Adam Cole says, you continue to impress me every day, Max. And Max, of course, being a scumbag, no pun intended or pun intended, he agrees. Adam Cole says he isn't, it isn't because at such a young age he's one of the best professional wrestlers in the world, but it's because of the man he's becoming, because he appreciates him sharing his story. Having the guts to explain what he's gone through, is a lot, but, I want him to know I want you to know that you are not alone. For years, he was a jerk, and Adam Cole talks about him being a jerk. So if he talks about for years, he was a jerk only because he thought he was the only thing he needed to do, or the only thing he needed to do was to basically stab everybody in the back because he was afraid and scared. He didn't understand what being a man really was. And Max, you are becoming the man you are meant to be. And Max, these people really love you. They adore you. They want to cheer for you. And that is not because he's one of the best damn pro wrestlers in the world, but that is because they know deep down in his heart and soul that there is a good guy in there. So Max, he wants to make sure that not only he's incredibly proud of you, but we are incredibly proud of you. Max then replies, as much as he enjoys, his, verbal fasciasso on him, he's still a scumbag. I just said it. And he loves the fact that he's wearing their brand new spanking t-shirt. And, of course, this t-shirt says Double Clothesline, available right now at shopaew.com. Get yours today. But that isn't why I called you out here. He called him out here because he made him a promise. And then after their match with FTR, win, lose, or draw, he would give him a shot at the Triple B, the AEW World Championship. And he's been thinking long and hard. And he came to the conclusion, slow pause, and then he immediately comes back and says that you do not deserve a title match. And the crowd is just like, what? And MJF walks down and he gets a contract and he says he doesn't just deserve any match. You deserve the match in front of the most historic crowd in the history of our sport, the most historic night in the history of our sport, in the main event, MJF versus Adam Cole, Wembley Stadium, all in. And there's no one he would want to make history with, so please sign it. Adam Cole then immediately, now this is a key point right here, Adam Cole grabs the contract. He doesn't even read through it. Granted, it's wrestling, so it may be nothing, but some people were mentioning that, and it very well could be something that we should keep an eye on. But MJF immediately signs the contract. So it's all set in stone, and the graphic showed up. It's MJF versus Adam Cole for the Triple B, the AEW World Championship, Sunday, August 27th, live on pay-per-view. Yes, it's going to be a pay-per-view in the biggest event in wrestling history, all in at Wembley Stadium. Adam Cole then says, I love you, man. And Max replies, I love you too, dude. And both men hug it out. The crowd is just rejoiced. They're just happy as hell that Adam Cole and MJF are just still on the same page. But not only that, they are going to be in the main event of All In at Wembley Stadium. This segment was fucking phenomenal. Everything about this segment was just perfect, man. I talk about a lot of stories in wrestling. A lot of segments with the Bloodline have been perfect. Just the emotion was there and the seriousness and the tone. You can tell all these guys put their best effort in what they were doing. MJF and Adam Cole are putting their best effort forward, and it's paying off tremendously. Everything about this, I remember when they were first teaming up together, I was thinking, okay, it's weird, but it's something different. The Adam Cole and MJF feud, I was afraid that it was going to end up like any type of MJF feud that it would be, and, you would have Adam Cole literally facing a guy one by one every week in order to get to Max for that AEW World Championship. But that is not the case. They went in a different route, and they had MJF paired with Adam Cole, and both of them are literally now best friends. And what's crazy is that it gravitated towards the audience so quickly that it became the hottest thing in AEW right now, which is insane to fucking think. Because if you think about it on paper, this is such a stupid idea. It is a dumb idea, but it just paid off tremendously. And now we're going to be getting Adam Cole and MJF at All In at Wembley Stadium. Now, the biggest question that we need to ask ourselves is, who is going to be turning on who? That is the biggest question. Now, a lot of people are pointing out the obvious. It's probably going to be MJF. I definitely do see it being MJF, but do not count out the fact that Adam Cole could possibly be the one to turn on MJF. Because if you guys have to watch it back, but when they hugged it out, and I didn't watch NXT at this time, but I would watch a little bit of clips, and this was kind of like the sheer beginning of the end of the Undisputed Era back in NXT. And this exact thing happened with Adam Cole and MJF. When both Adam Cole and MJF hugged it out, Adam Cole basically, when he hugged MJF, he did this. Basically had his fist and just kind of like pounced the back of MJF. He did the exact same thing to Roderick Strong in NXT, which led to the end of the Undisputed Era. So that right there basically kind of teased that Adam Cole could be the one to turn on MJF. Or another thing that we need to think about is the contract. Now, it may be something that's just sheer speculation on the wrestling community's behalf. But if you think about it, Adam Cole immediately just signed the fucking contract. You know, that is the number one thing you should not do. Adam Cole was, in a way, blinded by emotion. And what does MJF call himself? MJF calls himself the devil himself. Y'all ever watch The Exorcist? The devil is cunning. The devil is cunning. And he can give you anything you want, but it comes with the price. What if Adam Cole was blinded by emotion so much that he just signed the contract, not even knowing what is in the fucking contract? Who knows? This could go either way, and it creates that unpredictability nature. You want to know why the Bloodline story is so good? It's because it has you invested in what you're watching week by week by week, that you do not know what's going to happen. One moment you think this is going to happen, but if anything, the opposite ends up happening. That is exactly what we are seeing with Adam Cole and MJF. And for this to be the main event of All in London, on paper, it sounds, I don't want to say not main event worthy, but clearly, you know, since this is the hottest thing right now going in AEW, it deserves to be the main event spot for All In. Now, one thing I forgot to mention. Backstage, we had Roderick Strong. Immediately after they hugged it out, Roderick Strong is backstage, of course, all injured and all, and he is just pissed the fuck off. He is pissed off. And what happens? The Kingdom. Yes, the Kingdom. Mike Bennett and, of course, what's the other guy's name? I lost my train of thought. Deadass. The Kingdom come in, but Adam Cole has history with the Kingdom. The Kingdom come in, and, of course, they say, Adam Cole, they say, always forgetting about his real friends. Adam Cole, back in Ring of Honor, was paired with the Kingdom. What role does the Kingdom have to play in this? We have no idea. It's interesting. Very interesting. But I'm very, very invested in this whole storyline. Could this be the time to turn MJF into a full-fledged babyface? My answer is no. My answer is absolutely no. I get why people want MJF to be a babyface, but I feel like right now is not the time. This is the time to turn him into a babyface. The moment MJF drops the AEW World Championship, which is not going to be anytime soon, I'm sorry to hear you guys, but you know, we got long-term plans with CM Punk and MJF, and for a fact, it's not going to happen at All In, and it's not going to happen at All Out. My prediction is that match is going to be happening at the end of the year because it fits with the story of the bidding war of 2024. Once you have MJF drop that belt to whoever it could be, then you turn him into a babyface. That's where you do the experiment. Not the experiment, but that is where you turn him full-fledged babyface, and then you're off and rolling. If anything, this is kind of an experiment of what an MJF babyface run would be. I think at the end of the day, Adam Cole is not going to be the guy to turn on, you know, MJF. But we have the Kingdom being involved now. We got Roderick Strong. What role do they play? Mike Bennett and Matt Taven. I completely forgot Matt Taven's name earlier because I lost my train of thought. But Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, you know, what role could they play? Could we see the formation of the Kingdom with Adam Cole? We do not know. I doubt it. I think Adam Cole deserves to be a singles guy and a babyface, but it is what it is. But it's interesting, very interesting to see these developments happen, and All In just got a lot better. This is our first match that we have announced for All In, which we need to get more matches rolling because All In is in a couple of weeks. It's in less than 25 days? We need to get the ball rolling for All In. But overall, man, I'm excited, and I'm 100% stoked to see what is going to be happening at the end of the day. So those are my thoughts on that. Moving on. We got the Elite taking on Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh. Of all people, as I stated at the top of this review, you got Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh wrestling. Why? It is what it is, though. The match actually was pretty good. I'm not going to go through the match as a whole. We got a double team by Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. Matt is the legal man. Satnam Singh tags in. Matt faces off with him, and then he tries to tag in, but then Kenny and Nick were like, nope, which is hilarious. Nick then tags in. We got a dropkick by Satnam Singh. We then got a double dropkick by the Bucks, followed by a double crossbody by Satnam Singh on both members of the Young Bucks. Satnam Singh, Jeff Jarrett, and Jay Lethal mock the Elite once we're back from commercial break. The heels are in control. Nick goes for a super kick on Jeff Jarrett. Kenny tags in. He picks up, we get a kick by Jay Lethal. He picks up Jay, but then we get the You Can't Escape by Kenny. Satnam Singh comes in. He hits a moonsault, but Jay gets the knees up. That being Kenny hitting the moonsault, not Satnam Singh. My apologies right over there. The Bucks then fight off Jay Lethal, but then the Bucks counter the lethal injection. We then get the super kick party by the Bucks, but then we get a series of super kicks on Satnam Singh. Kenny goes for the V-trigger. Omega then tries to get Satnam Singh up for the one-winged angel, but Sanjay Dutt, the asshole himself. Yes, Sanjay Dutt, yeah. We get the lethal combination by Jay Lethal on Kenny. Brandon comes in. Brendan Cutler sprays Karen Jarrett in the face. Satnam Singh takes him out, but then the Hardys come in, and then we get they attack Satnam Singh and the rest of the heels. After that, Jeff Jarrett has the guitar from behind, but Hangman out of nowhere hits the buckshot from behind. We get the V-trigger by Kenny, but then Kenny plays the guitar, hits the one-winged angel, and we get a cover and the Elite win the match. Great. But what was important was the promo that Kenny cut after. And he tells Hangman, hey, so what is the important news? What's on your mind, Hangman? And Hangman says, as you've seen, there's been a big announcement earlier today that the Elite have re-signed with AEW. So tonight, Dynamite 200, here is to the next 200. And then Kenny gets the mic. And this is the very interesting. This was something I genuinely believe did not happen by accident. I refuse to believe that this happened by accident. Kenny has the mic, right? And he says, whether it be Dynamite, Ring of Honor, Rampage, heck, even Collision. Slow pause, and when he said even Collision, you're going to be seeing more of us. I must bid you adieu, goodbye, and good night, bang. Kenny Omega mentioned Collision. I know for a fact that was not a goddamn accident. That was not an accident at all. I refuse to believe that was an accident. I believe that was intentional. What could that be leading to? I mean, Kenny and the Bucks signed new deals. Hangman signed new deals. They are staying for the long term, man. They're going to be staying for like the next 4 to 5 years. We do not know the length of their contracts, but they're going to be staying for a while. And we all know Collision is officially, but at the same time, not officially, CM Punk's show. Collision is the CM Punk show. And AEW right now is operating under they're operating under a brand split that's not really a brand split. It's a brand split in the sense of, yeah, you got your own storylines, but you still got a little bit of crossover. So it's not really a brand extension, but never have we heard the Elite mention Collision whatsoever. Never. This is the first time Kenny mentioned Collision. What could that mean, man? Could we be seeing Kenny Omega versus CM Punk? Could we be seeing CMFTR taking on the Elite? Now, Fightful put out a report with the update of the Elite re-signing new deals with AEW, or signing new deals, I should say, with AEW. And it said the rumored match is the Young Bucks versus FTR. Those two men have history with one another. They had phenomenal matches with one another. And imagine if they had that match at All In. What could CM Punk be doing? What if, they want to steal some thunder from SummerSlam and they end up doing Kenny Omega, showing up at the end? I may be wrong, but who knows? Who knows? We also got All Out a week later. Of course, All Out a year to the date where Brawl Out happened. Very interesting, bro. Maybe I'm thinking something out of nothing, but him mentioning Collision was not an accident. I refuse to believe that. I do believe we will be getting the Elite versus CM Punk. Could it be All In? Could it be All Out? No. Heck, who knows? What if they kick off that story at All Out? Since, All Out, it's basically the 1-year anniversary of Brawl Out. What if they, instead of happening at All Out, what if they kick off the story at All Out? Nobody's mentioning that. It's very interesting. I'm very interested to see what's going to be happening, but Yeah, man. Kenny Omega mentioned Collision. I don't know about that, bro. I'm excited, but maybe I'm getting excited for no reason at all. We got a video package of the Mogul Embassy. They show AR Fox and Swerve going into the Buddy Wayne Academy, and it shows Buddy Wayne training with a lot of other wrestlers. And they basically what happens is a brawl breaks loose, and the Mogul Embassy, that being Swerve and AR Fox, beat the shit out of Nick Wayne. And they force Nick Wayne to call Darby Allin. And what happens is they call Darby Allin, and instead of it being Nick Wayne, AR Fox is on the phone. And Swerve grabs the phone and he's like, why didn't you say thank you to AR Fox when you were first signed to AEW? And then Darby's pissed on the phone, all that stuff, and they continue to just beat the shit out of Nick Wayne. Nick Wayne is all bloodied up. And then all of a sudden they smash a frame of Nick Wayne, and Swerve has a photo of Nick Wayne when he was a kid with his father who passed away a couple of years ago. This was awesome. I loved this video package. It felt different. Last week I was very vocal about AR Fox joining the group because, again, I felt like, again, what's the direction? But after this video package, I was like, man, maybe there is some direction with the Mogul Embassy. And maybe AR Fox could be that catalyst. What if we get Swerve versus Nick Wayne at All In again? Or what if we get Swerve versus Darby? I assume it's going to be Swerve versus Darby or AR Fox versus Darby, but something's going to be happening at All In, man. AEW is going to try to stack this All In card as much as they can because All In is clearly their biggest show of all time in the company's history. And this is one of the stories that I'm definitely keeping an eye on because this was very good. After that, we got Aussie Open taking on El Hijo del Vikingo and Commander for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. Yes, Ring of Honor is on AEW TV once again. Remember last year where everybody was complaining about Ring of Honor being on TV, and then everybody was like, oh, Ring of Honor is going to get a TV deal, Ring of Honor is going to get a TV deal, and then we ended up having Honor Club instead. Yeah, ROH was on AEW TV for nothing, but it is what it is. I love Aussie Open. Of course, they are the current Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, and they won the titles at Death Before Dishonor a couple of weeks ago. El Hijo del Vikingo and Commander, man. You got to love them. But I'm not going to go through the whole match. Basically, Commander walks off the shoulders of Vikingo and hits a Hurricane Rana. Aussie Open later on are in control. After that, Vikingo hits a dropkick off of the back of Commander. After that, we get a double tope by Vikingo and Commander, but then they get caught by Aussie Open. And Aussie Open run. They basically catch individually both Commander and Vikingo, and they both run towards each other, and Vikingo and Commander knock off one each other on their backs. Once we're back from commercial break, Vikingo go for the double thrust kick on Aussie Open. After that, actually no, Aussie Open goes for the double thrust kick. We got a double elbow strike by Aussie Open. Commander off the back of Vikingo hits a Canadian Destroyer. We got a crucifix bomb by Vikingo. Both men walk the ropes, and they end up hitting a double moonsault, which was amazing. Then after that, they go for a double 450. We get a cover into near fall when Kyle Fletcher makes the save. Commander walks the ropes and hits a shooting star. Commander loves fucking walking the ropes, man. Jesus Christ. Aussie Open then, go for the double strike, and then they later on hit the Coriolis, and we get a cover, and Aussie Open retain the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles. Great match. I don't know why Ring of Honor is being showcased right here, but it is what it is. What's very interesting is that in this match, the commentators, even though we've seen Ring of Honor all the fucking time last year, they briefly explained what Ring of Honor was, and I liked that. They're like, well, Ring of Honor has, influenced a lot of, wrestlers in AEW and influenced a lot of AEW. I like how they explain that. That's just me. But moving on, we got our main event. We got Tony Storm taking on Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's World Championship. There's been a lot of drama going on in the AEW Women's division lately, and something that I haven't even talked about yet, and hopefully I'll save for another video, because apparently there was an independent wrestler that had an interview, I believe, with Fightful, that talked about the inner goings in the women's division, and it's very, very, very weird. I do not know the full story. I'm looking into it, but there's been a lot of drama going on in the women's division as of late. But, of course, last week we had Britt Baker versus Taya Valkyrie, a very sloppy match nobody gave a fuck about. And unfortunately, AEW has been struggling in the booking of their women's division because, again, they have no direction. Toni Storm's recent title reign made no sense. She kind of felt like she was like a sidekick in the Outcasts, and she was the women's champion. Hikaru Shida winning the AEW Women's title was the right decision to make. Now, I believe the reason why they had Toni Storm drop the belt was because of the fact that Toni Storm is actually going to be filming a movie. So that was basically the main reason why. But I digress. Let's go towards the match. Both women fight it out. I'm not going to go through this spot by spot. I'm just going to name key points. We get a hip attack countered by Shida into a German suplex. We get an enziguri by Shida. We get a running knee strike by Shida. We get a second running knee strike in the corner, but then we get repeated right hands on the second rope. We then get a drop kick off the second rope by Shida, but then we get a cover and a near fall. Shida goes to the top, and then she ends up hitting the Meteora. We get a cover by Shida and a near fall, but then Shida and Storm are on the top. Ruby Soho interferes. Storm ends up going for the DDT, and then she goes for the running hip attack and then hits the DDT again. This, I thought Storm was actually going to get the win, but apparently we got a cover by Storm and a near fall. Storm and Shida goes for a series of exchanges, and Storm misses a boot. We get a knee strike by Shida, and then she ends up hitting the Falcon Arrow. And we get a cover and a near fall. Both have the kendo stick, so basically Shida takes out her kendo stick, and Storm tries to take it away from her, but Shida finally gets the kendo stick, and she threatens Toni Storm with it. And Toni Storm is like, bro, hit me. Because, of course, this is a title match. If Shida hits Storm, then, Storm is going to win, and she's going to retain the AEW Women's title. But what happens is she hits Ruby, who was on the apron. Storm has the spray paint, but she ends up hitting the Storm Zero. Right then and there, I thought she had it. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a series of roll-up reversals by both women. Shida goes for the roll-up, and Shida wins the AEW Women's World Championship. Overall thoughts, this was a great match to main event Dynamite. And honestly, Hikaru Shida winning the AEW Women's Championship was the right decision to make. Nothing against Toni Storm, but let's be real here. Toni Storm's run ever since she won the women's title once again, back at Double or Nothing, like what was the direction for Toni Storm? There was no direction whatsoever. She had no focus on the show. The Outcasts is a failed experiment. Nobody cares about the Outcasts whatsoever. It's a group that nobody cares about. That's the biggest problem. And Shida winning the title, I feel like at least there's some sort of direction, at least when it comes to Hikaru Shida. What's very interesting is that we do not know what's going to be happening at All In when it comes to Hikaru Shida, but it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on. But as of right now, Hikaru Shida, and well-deserved, she is your new AEW Women's World Champion. But yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite 200 review right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Overall thoughts on this show, I thought this was a very, very, very good episode of Dynamite. Much better than last week. Of course, this week, we're going to have a stacked weekend. Of course, we got SummerSlam, we got Collision, and of course, we are on the road to All In at Wembley Stadium. So I'm definitely intrigued to see what's going to be going on throughout these next couple of weeks leading towards All In, and AEW, man, is on a fucking roll. But in the meantime, please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. Look out for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast in which we discuss everything in and outside of the Squared Circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys later. Peace.